I'm Catherine Sheeran, host of the podcast Horse Tales with Cat. My guest today was born and raised in Kessel in the Netherlands, where she still makes her home today. Janou Hendrix is the marketing director of one of the most renowned equestrian businesses in the world. Stal Hendrix will celebrate its 50-year anniversary next year and boasts two facilities, one focused on breeding and producing young stallions, and the other training riders and students, as well as hosting prominent national show jumping competitions. Janou is the marketing and promotions director of Hendrix Auctions, the Dutch Sports Horse Sales Auction in Peelbergen, the Stallion Show, JDM International, the Lindbergh Foal Auction, the Stal Hendrix competition, and now the World Horse Sports Sales in Ocala. She has also partnered with Eric Gernald to create Barnbridge Auctions, which gathers the lots of elite horse auctions all on one platform. Janou, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
So let's dive into your history because it's fairly unique. You grew up in this idyllic horse farm environment where your uncle was one of the top riders in the Netherlands. He competed for the Netherlands in the Olympics. Your father was passionate about breeding and trading. Was there any question you wouldn't be part of this business?
And that's actually a nice one. It was, as a kid, of course, always very nice to grow up with horses and with always people from abroad come and visit. I think looking back as a child, that gives you a lot. It gives you a lot of experience when you're young to meet, many different kind of people. I used to ride ponies, and so did my brother Michel. But it was not a given fact that I would join the family company, actually. I studied sports marketing, which I liked from the beginning, not just show jumping, but sports in general. And after that, I worked for ING Bank for 4 years in Eindhoven after finishing my studies. And I think at one point, I there was actually a reorganization at the bank, and I was still involved with the show, the JPM International now, that used to be a national show at the time, and as well as the Dutch Sport Horse Sales. And I have to say, I liked banking, but I didn't love it. And at that point, so I could make a decision, what do I do? Do I go for another job outside the family business, or do I actually join? Because it was never discussed before. So I was happy to make the decision to decide that and go and work for the family business.
So I know your grandfather originally started the concept, if I'm not mistaken, of the breeding end of things, but both your father, Paul, and your uncle, Emile, turned it into a much larger production scale. How did you, I imagine you've had the conversation about how did that come about? Sorry, how did that come about? And then all of the auctions. I mean, it's such a brilliant concept to, and next step when you're already doing the breeding and you're hosting international clients to then bring on the auctions. But how did that, I
Evolve?
guess, yes.
Yes. As you said, Emil used to be a rider representing the Netherlands on many occasions. And my father, big breeding passionate, as well as he always had stallions every year. The combination of the two of them, I think, is very unique. Emil was always at shows, meeting people, and my dad would also be at different shows, local shows, national shows, scouting horses, as well as breeding them to sell them eventually to the clients that Emil would meet at shows. And I think they did their first business in America in 83, more or less, 1983. And we still do business with his granddaughter. So that's really nice, the long-term relationship they've built with starting to do business in America. I think they saw the concept of auctions 22 years ago, they did their first auction. That Schockemöhle was running auctions. And there was not so many people that were doing it at the time. And they thought that, yeah, it was a good opportunity to start something new. And as you mentioned, to gather people from all over the world to come to Europe, to Limburg, actually, to, yeah, at the time in Weert, to come and look for new horses. Have a nice evening, like hospitality, ambience, and also buy horses at the same time. And at the time in Weert, they did it together with Mr. Gordijn. He was also involved in dressage a lot. So it was a combination. The first year, I think, was actually 3 and 4 year olds, and that turned into just show jumping later, 4, 5, 6 years old, and that's now still young horses and only show jumping. And I think over the years, it also made a big transition that we saw many other auctions coming along as well. But I think we always stick to our concept that we try to sell the right horse to the right person, and we have a nice evening for all our guests. And yeah, I think also speaking about auctions, COVID changed a lot. There was the concept of having online auctions was still pretty new for the horse world. I think like in art, it was more common to buy maybe a piece of art or online. But for the horses, that yeah took some time, and I think through COVID that got a lot faster. And nowadays you see, yeah, every day there is an auction.
Yes, I actually was interested to find out how that evolved. I had assumed it did come out of COVID, but I also thought, as to your point, like what a brilliant idea. Because what has struck me with Stal Hendrix from the beginning is I personally was exposed to Stal Hendrix 26 years ago. I bought my first really nice jumper. He was a 4-year-old that came from there. And I remember actually meeting your father and the whole experience. And it was very welcoming and warm. And there was, I don't know how to say, there was just a very much a relaxed nature about it. It didn't feel like a business transaction. It felt, to your point, that it was meant to be a really good match. And I think what was also interesting that I noted, because I know that your family did a lot of business with Ian Miller and his clients, as well as Beth Underhill. She actually told me a lovely story. I'm pretty sure it was Altair that came from there, and that
Yes.
she wasn't able to afford him fully at the time. And so I believe it was your father that bought part of the horse to be able to afford her the opportunity. And that to me spoke to the fact that they wanted to make sure that the horse was going to the right match. But I
Mm-hmm.
also loved that there were certainly clients where the horse wasn't necessarily the right fit. And there was always the reputation that you could bring that horse back, exchange, get something that was more suitable. There was always another home for that horse. So, where did that concept come from? Because I feel like that's fairly unique too.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by the international law firm of Cooley LLP. Clients partner with Cooley on transformative deals, complex IP and regulatory matters, and high-stakes litigation. Cooley has nearly 1,400 lawyers across 19 offices in the United States, Asia, and Europe, and a total workforce of more than 3,000 people. Our connection to the law firm comes through Cooley partner and jumper rider Cullen Drescher, who competes in the high amateur and Grand Prix levels, in addition to leading Cooley's business restructuring practice from the firm's offices in New York City.
I think that's exactly what we stand for, and I think you're really right about saying that we try to solve things if it doesn't work out. And that's the reputation we've built over the years. Of course, credits to Paul and Emil, and I think we as a third generation try to treat our clients the same way. And I think that you want to be in there for the long run to build a relationship with trainers and clients. And I think sometimes that also means that if things don't work out, that you try to look for a solution. And yeah, I think that's very nice. I'm not sure if it's unique, but I think it's a very good way to do business and also to maintain the relationship between the clients. And it's nice that you bring up Ian and as well Beth. They still come here, and that's so nice. It's the same with the first American client we had. It's the same with the Millers and so many more people. And it's also nice to see Amy now competing with a horse on the highest level, and the horse we bred here in Kassel. So that's very fun to see that still is going, and that relationship is also there.
So I wanted to shift gears a little bit to the business itself because, as I noted, you run quite a few events between the auctions and the competitions. What does that mean logistically for you? Because you're behind all the marketing and promotion for these events. And now you've also taken on World Horse Sport Sales in Ocala, which I have to admit I was able to attend this past year. And what an event.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. I was really thoroughly impressed. It's my first time being at any kind of a horse auction, and I was just blown away by the caliber of the presentation and the horses and the ambiance. So what does it look like logistically for you day to day?
Well, like the year round, as you mentioned, we have all our events, and it's not just me. It's we try to do it with our family, with Tim and Michelle, as well as the team in the office, so we can run things smoothly. As you said, and I'm happy that you were a guest at our auction in Ocala. We've been very grateful to the Roberts family and the team at WEC that we were able to set up an auction that we are very well known with in Europe, but not so much in America yet. Actually, the VDL family runs one in Wellington for more than as so many more years than I know. And it was my dad when he went to visit Amos Spadone in Ocala. They walked around at WAC and he was like, "Wow, how cool would it be if we could do an auction here too?" Like it's nice. It's If I try to explain anyone about WAC, it's hard to explain how big and how beautiful and nice it is. And we were, like I said, very grateful that we could get the opportunity together with Amo and also Andre Thieme to start there. And we had our fourth edition this year, which was, really nice. It was sold out at the VIP, which is nice. So you can have a good atmosphere to sell the horses. Organization-wise, I try to run as much as I can from the office here in the Netherlands. And I, of course, have help from the team at Redfield Farm and Horseflight on the other side of the ocean to run the auction. So that's mostly beginning of the year, like January, February, March. We also come with quite a big team from the Netherlands to Ocala to help out there. And when we come back, we have our stallion show coming up because we have a stud farm, here as well at one of our locations. And we always like to show the breeders in the area the stallions we have available for that year. And let me think, that's April. And end of April, beginning of May, we start with a young horse competition that we host. It's on 5 different locations and the final. It's 4, 5, and 6-year-old jumpers that have the time to develop themselves. And it's a really nice concept for young horses to go to different places, to jump on grass, to jump on sand, have some really nice venues to get experience in. And that's actually a very nice concept. And as well, in May, we have our 3-star show, our JPM International, which started as a school project. And that was only 2 days. And now it's like almost a full week of show jumping, which is really cool. And we're also very proud of that. Many of the top riders and clients from us find their way to Kassel in May to come to our show. And after that, actually, we already start with the preparations for the Limburg Fall Auction, which is an auction held in September in Peelbergen in Kronenberg. and we sell the foals for the breeders in the area. So we try to create a market space for them, which is really nice, I think. And in the same week, we host the Dutch sport horse sales, and that was actually the first auction. Paul and Emil started with some other people, yeah, back then over 20 years ago. And I think actually that's not even all of it because then in December we still run the online HX auctions. That actually we created in COVID because we thought people couldn't travel and people could maybe invest in the HX philosophy, sorry, a little bit earlier than normally. So we would select 3-year-old horses from our breeding program, and the breeding program contains foals that were born here, but also bought by us, maybe in the Limburg foal auction or from breeders that we have contracts with. So it's like a really nice group of foals we start with every year. And out of that group, in the end, of course, there is a group left, not all of them. But we selected some really nice 3-year-olds, and yeah, we've done that now also for a few years, which is nice. And you can see them also being successful in a later stage. So to come back to your question, organization-wise, mostly everything from the office in Kassel with our team, and yeah, it's a whole year round, and it's not just organizing; it's, as you said, also the marketing activities around it. And I like to go to different events and shows to see how other people do things. So it inspires me to make our events better and better every year. I think you also have to be critical on your own events to see what you can improve and do better to make the experience for everybody nicer and better. And yeah, as well as for everybody that sells the horse or the foal. We like to do things the right way for everybody, not just for one party. So that's a bit the whole year round of events.
Well, and I wondered, what do you like most about your position?
To create nice things, to create an event that people love to come to, that are people are happy that they come. We set our standards high, not just with selling horses, but I think you can also see that with our events. We try to do it in a very nice way, and that I like a lot. And also like to improve everything every year. I think, yeah, that gives me a lot of energy, and yeah, I think that's very nice to do.
And I wonder, how have you approached, there's such an increase now, obviously, in social media for marketing and promotion. How have you taken that on? Because I can tell you just from doing this podcast, I've had to learn how to use Instagram and social media, and it's not easy. And
No, no, exactly. And it also goes so fast. And I think there is other companies, I would say, that are like us or like do things maybe a bit bigger and everything on social media. I think to be on there and to be seen, I think is already very good. And I think you have to follow the way what you stand for also on social media. I think is very important that you stick to your core values of the company. And I do think it's important. You see that also social media is not just the Netherlands, it reaches the whole world and so many people. And I think you can use it in a very positive way. And I think it's amazing. Sometimes you get like a DM from somebody in America that got a horse from you like 10 years ago and they send pictures, or like one of my now retired horses, I think he was 28, and I received a picture from the lady that owns him now. And I think social media made that communication a lot easier as well. Like to look for connection between people, I think that's a lot easier because of social media. And that is also nice for like the breeders that we auction the foals for. They also get in touch with the people that buy them, and they can follow the road, how they develop and how successful they will become. And that's actually very nice.
and I would imagine it also can potentially increase their business because somebody in that country sees that social media post as well and realizes, oh, it's possible for me to bring a horse from there.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, like with the events, if they see, oh, they had an amazing evening, maybe we should join next year. I think definitely it encourages people to take action and to want to be part of maybe the community that either Stal Hendrix creates or whatever businesses. Yeah, definitely.
And I would say, in you mentioning that, that actually also triggers in my mind that is something about Stal Hendrix, is that you have created a community and it's a very international community. I think maybe that gets back to your grassroots level where even without social media, there's just that word of mouth. You have a reputation that people know that they can count on you and the expectations will be met.
Well, I think you're very right about that. Like the word of mouth in the end is also as strong as social media can be. I think people still believe really in, like, if you say something nice or you give a recommendation or a negative experience, I think that's also still very strong. But yeah, yeah.
I was curious, is there anyone you've met in the horse world as a result of your position that maybe it surprised you to be able to meet them, or that it really touched you to meet them?
It's funny, somebody once told me, or it was on the radio, or somebody, I heard it say someone, like through one or two persons in your network, you can meet the president of the United States. But that was years ago that you say that, or like that you can meet somebody famous. And actually, that's true. Like Laura Crowd has been one of our clients, and wow, through Laura, you get to meet Bruce Springsteen, for example. That would never happen. So I think that's something funny, that because of your network and because of the business that you're in, that gives you those opportunities. And actually, when you think of it, it's actually true. It's like it only takes one or two people that know, I don't know who, like an Olympic champion in whatever sport, not just a show jumping world. But that I think is very cool.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking years ago when I did go to try horses, I was sitting in the car with your uncle Emil and Ian Miller, and we drove by a farm, and I thought to myself, what would it mean to these children that are doing their pony club to imagine meeting two Olympians in a car? And here I
Exactly.
was, I just took it for granted that I was driving in a car with them. And I'm thinking they have years of experience and wisdom and talent. And I had the opportunity to be driving along the road with them.
Yes. Yeah, that is actually really cool. And sometimes you also need to realize that for a second, that wow, Ian with all the years of experience, and as well as Emil, and then when you put them together, like, yeah, that is very, very nice and very cool. And you can learn so much from that still. And in every aspect, because I actually was at a concert yesterday and the lady gave such a performance. It's like top sport. It's like Laura Crowd performing in a Rolex Grand Prix, and that inspires you too. I think, even business people can give you an inspiration for so many things that you can apply to your daily business or your events or the way you develop the young horses and sell them to clients. And I think that's really cool.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit because I know you also started another enterprise, which was Barn Bridge Auctions, and that was with Eric Jerneld. And again, I think this was born out of COVID times. From what I understand, you are a platform that brings together all the online auctions. Maybe you could expand a little bit on what it is you do and where this came from.
Yes, of course. It was COVID time. And it was my father that would ask me every day, which auction is running today? I can't follow. There's so many. They came out of nowhere because of the fact people couldn't travel and they wanted to still sell their horses. And Eric has been a client of ours for many, many years. And he likes tech and he likes to develop new things. And we were actually, I don't know if he was here like a while before that. And we said, oh, we actually should do like a cool project together. Well, and then that happened. And we decided we wanted to create a platform where people could go to and see which auction was actually running today. Like the main question my father had was, which auction is running today? So we started with auctions at the time, mostly online. Later also the live auctions, or actually the auctions I would say that would normally run a live auction and now did maybe an online version of it or in a different way. What we thought was important is that you could also see the lots of that auction, and that would take them to the auction platform itself. Because I think you want to like have that, if you see the horse that has been auctioned today, you would also want to go to their platform to straight away make a bid. I think that transition was important to us. On the other side, we thought it was a cool thing to have to set alerts, like certain stallions were up and coming, Hermitage Cologne as an example. And if you really wanted an Hermitage foal or a horse, you can set an alert and you will receive an email so you can get your Hermitage Cologne if you wanted so. And we also created a database, and over time we've been thinking now with technology like going so fast that it would be really cool to do certain things with that database that we have. So in the database, you could find if it was sold. And what we thought was very important, that the auctions itself gave us permission to show the prices. If they didn't want to give the prices to us, we would not publish them. And I think that's also some kind of relationship with the auction houses. Yeah, that was important to us, to respect their wishes in that way. So that came along, and it's been a nice journey so far. And you can see some of the online auctions disappeared after 2 or 3 years, or like after 2 or 3 editions actually. And yeah, which is also, I think, so nice still today. Like the Schockemüller auction still runs, Holger Hatzel's auction still runs, and that's mainly the auctions in Europe, I would say, are on our platform. But we're always open to expand, and like the auction we run in the States, it's on there as well. And I think also for Americans or like people anywhere in the world that want to see what is happening in auction land, most of the auctions are on our platform. We did ask them permission. We also were there very open and respectful to the auction houses, that we would not just put you on our platform. We would ask their permission. That comes maybe a bit from the Stal Hendrix mindset to build a relationship in that way.
I was just thinking that's where your reputation would have really helped you in this process, because I also imagine there was a lot of coordination involved. And then the technical side, how did you approach that? Did you have to hire a platform to coordinate everything for you? Like, this is a bigger project than one might think.
Yeah, I think we developed for a year. We developed for a year because, yes, it was a bigger project than expected. And we had an engineer helping us with that, designing wise, but also on the back end, like tech wise, which was actually also, you learned a lot of new things, which is cool. I like to learn and to adapt and see where it goes. And I think it's been a nice journey so far. Also like to learn and also to see how fast technology and AI develops nowadays, how we could implement that as well in the future. So, yeah.
So how do you approach learning all of these new skills? Do you have a technical advisor that helps you, or are you now you're online figuring it out by yourself?
Well, as I said before, look at what others do, read about it. I'm mostly like a curious person. So if I'm interested in something, I'll dive into it and see how we can apply it to our business. But I think that's also a bit the person you have to be, that has to be in you a little bit. But I like to look outside just the Castle Barlow grounds and see what the world is doing. I think that's also important.
That's a very clever approach. I was just thinking that that's something that I don't think of necessarily every day, to look outside the industry you're working in to see what they're doing, because that can certainly impact your own business.
It's not always easy, because I think the equestrian world is in some ways a bit a traditional world, I would say. So with, for example, tag, they're maybe a bit like, not so sure. Maybe, like, I've been talking to Lucy Davis about this quite some time. Like, when she's in Europe, she is 15 minutes away and she knows a lot. And it's fun to talk with her about these things too, that our equestrian world is quite traditional. On the other side, like, there's so many apps being developed, which I think is really nice. I had a Turkish girl visiting us last week, and they developed a new app, and that I like. And I also go dive into it and I say, oh, what about this or what about that? It's also nice to give them some feedback from your personal experience and background. And it's not always easy to look outside, but it can help you in some ways.
Well, and I was actually kind of surprised that despite COVID, a lot of riders still don't know how to use Zoom.
Well, yes, but they sit on a horse normally all day, so they don't have to know how that works.
I feel like it was one of the few industries where people were really impacted because even in North America, it was the one thing that we could all continue to do. We were allowed to go see our horses, ride them. But it has been comical because doing the podcast, normally I'm using Zoom for the recording. And I've had so many riders who tell me, okay, I don't even have this on my phone or my iPad, or we don't have technology at all. And I was
It's
kind
just
of,
an app.
yes.
It's also a little bit generation. Like if my dad or Emil would have to have a call and in the beginning, like, oh, how does that work? And you help them with it and then they get the hang of it. So it's also a bit because they never had to. They never had to use technology. I remember there was a phone in our family house in the kitchen and my dad would make phone calls there. And I think he was one of the first people that would have like a built-in phone in the car, but it was like this big machine. It's fun when you think back that developed so quick actually over the years.
It's true. I had one of those car phones back in the day too. We called them the telephone in a bag because they actually would just plug into your lighter and you could take the bag out with you. It's
Oh, really? That I
yeah,
don't even remember.
no, it has, to your point, come a long way as far as technology. So, Janou, you work in an industry dominated by men. I wondered what that was like for you and how do you assure that your voice is heard?
Obviously, I grew up living with four men being already in the family business. But I think my mom and other women close to me were very supportive in me joining. And I think sometimes a female touch is also good in this male dominated industry. I think sometimes women look at things in a different way, maybe have a bit more eye for detail or in a different way, as well as with communications. I think women have a different style. And I never really felt that I was the woman in the group, the only woman. I would mention it sometimes, but you try to also do it in your own style and your own way to be part of it. And I think if it's my uncle or my dad, but also my brother and my cousin, we see each other as all as even. So it's not that I feel different in that way. And I think with mutual respect to another, I think there you don't have to stand out, oh, I'm a man or I'm a woman. But I think the respect you have to another, I think is very good in that way. But of course, it is not always easy to work with four men in our family business, speaking about that. But I see more and more women also getting into the business and creating their own businesses. And I think that's very nice to see. And also with these women, you can have conversations about how they work with men or how they work with other women together. And I think women like to tend to talk about that and also help each other in that way.
And I had wondered what the dynamic was within your family, simply because you're working with your brother Michelle and your cousin Timothy. And I know you're the youngest, are you not? So I wondered, does that dynamic ever come into play? Just myself as a person in a large family, I can sometimes feel like there is a certain way that my siblings treat me because I'm the middle child. I wonder, does that ever come into play? You may have already answered that when you talked about the respect side of things.
Well, yeah, of course. Of course. Also, I think when I was younger, when we were all younger, then it's more like she's the youngest one. But growing up and when you get experience and you have your expertise and they value and respect, yeah, I'm speaking again about that mutual respect. I think it becomes more even, but definitely it's not always easy to get that spot within the dynamics. And also when you get older, we all getting older now, I think that works in a different way. I do think when I was younger, maybe like 5 years or 10 years ago, when I started, it was different than how it is today. And I think that's also actually a nice learning curve that you make yourself and also the others, and that you take together, work out your family business in the best way possible.
How will that transition go eventually from Emil and Paul to the three of you? Have you talked about that, or do you feel like it'll just be a gradual taking over? Or I also can imagine that they'll probably be part of the business for many years to come. I just wondered if that's something that comes into conversations.
Oh, yeah, and already for many years, since the fact that I got into it as well, I think we're gradually trying to get the position shifted from Emil and Paul to us. For example, in Tim's location, he has a daily operation that's his thing. Like the management, Tim runs that completely. The same with Michel at his location. He runs that. And I think by time that people will also start to reach out to Tim and Michel or to myself if they want to buy a horse or regarding one of our events. But like the relations that we have for over the years and that are used to talk to Paul and Emile, of course, they will talk to Paul and Emile. But I think that's a really natural process of how that will develop. And we talk about that often. And we also, the older generation, to say Emile and Paul, they also really try to create space for us so we can step up. And I don't think that's always easy for them, but at least they're willing to try. And they also see that in the end, it's going to be our business. So they also want to give us the opportunity to create it in the way that we would like to set it forward. They have set it up so big and they created something beautiful. And with the 3 locations, it's a whole operation. And I think by time we will make it our own. So I think maybe there will be some changes, maybe not. You will take the things that suit you as a leader or as an entrepreneur. And I think by time that will change. But honestly, I hope they're in this for a very much longer time because we learn every day from them. And we are very grateful that they are still so active. If it's Emile with scouting horses or selling horses or keeping in touch with the clients, and Paul also, I think it's only nice that we can still learn from them every day. And naturally, that will make a transition into the next generation.
The other question I'd have along that vein is, do you feel any pressure because it's been such a long-standing business in Europe? Do you feel pressure, or your brother and your cousin, to feel like there's weight on your shoulders with this?
Pressure is maybe not the right word. Yes, you feel some kind of pressure, but also honor to be able to proceed the family business. And I think we're proud to be able to do so. And yes, you would like to do that in the best possible way. So maybe you feel some kind of pressure, but on the other hand, it doesn't feel like pressure. It's just that you want to have Stal Hendrix be for another 30 to 50 years, or even pass it on to the next generation. Because my brother and also Tim, they have some kids. Who knows what they will do, if they will be the next generation, or maybe they're not interested in horses at all when they are older. So there is a kind of pressure, but like I said, it doesn't really feel like a big weight on the shoulders. Of course, you want to not be the generation that everything goes down. So you really want to do your best to create it in the best way possible moving forward. But yeah, I think that's the answer to your question.
I think that's perfect. So I wondered, how do you get to incorporate beyond the obvious, being around horses all day? Are you still getting to ride, do hacks? Do you do any riding yourself nowadays?
As I said before, I grew up riding, but I wasn't as talented or motivated as my brother or my cousin, I would say. And I think there was one point in my life I actually wanted to become a rider. But then I think my parents encouraged me also to go study and to do different things. But I love to be around horses. I love walking to the fields where all the foals are, to just have a look around, or to go to the stallion barn and snuggle with one of the stallions. And I have to say, I try to make time sometimes to ride on a free Saturday morning if I get a chance. I'm very lucky and grateful that I can just ask in the barn, is there a horse I can ride? That is safe enough for the amateur of the family, I always say. But I think that's also for everybody in our business, the passion and the love you have for these animals. I think that is so nice, and that you see back in everything, and that also motivates you to do your best for the horses and for everybody around you. So no, if there is a chance, I'll try to ride on a Saturday morning.
Well, and that is one thing that I've found is universal when I'm talking to anybody in the equestrian field, is that we all share the love of the horse, and that passion never goes, whether you're riding or not. My last question for you would be, what can we expect to see from Stal Hendrix in the next couple of years? Do you have any projects? And also, next year being the 50th anniversary, as we mentioned at the beginning, do we have big plans for that?
Well, we really like to make a memorable year out of the 50th anniversary, and hopefully the horses that were sold by Stal Hendrix will speak for that too in the ring. That's always nice. I remember we made a calendar, I think when it was 40 or 30 years, Stal Hendrix, and every month had a horse that won a Grand Prix that year was sold by us, or like it had a Stal Hendrix stamp on it in some way. And I think for the next year, we really try to create another nice event. And as well for the coming years, I think it's the third generation trying to create a space for themselves. Like my cousin Tim is operational at the facility in Balo where you've been. I'm based at one of the other facilities in Kassel, and my brother runs his farm at the other location in Kassel. And I think, yeah, over the years, it will be the three of us running it more and more and making decisions more and more. And we're very grateful that both Paul and Emil are on our side still and very active. But I think we like to make it more our own in a few years, and that will take time. And that's also very exciting. And also with the experience that they both have to give us also the chances to do so. And they really give us the motivation also to make it our own in the future. Of course, with the Stal Hendrix philosophy and the 50 years that were, yeah, that's, it's also sometimes big, how do you say that? Big shoes to step in.
Yes.
And we try to do that in the best possible way. But I think we'll try to make something very nice out of it and try to still develop the events in a better way, like make them better, try to not stand still and try to improve them every year. So I think that's, when I speak for myself, that's one of the main tasks to do for the coming years.
Well, I think if the past is any indication, you will continue to move forward and thrive. And I love that you've injected your third generation into the mix, because I think that that is having a big impact on not just your business, but on the horse world in general. So we thank you for that.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And thank you so much for taking time out to meet with me today. And I certainly wish you all the best in all your endeavors in the upcoming years. And in particular, next year being the 50th anniversary, I look forward to seeing what you come up with to celebrate that event.
No pressure. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be your guest, and I hope you liked what we discussed. So thank you.
This episode is brought to you in part by Horseflight, an equine transport company established in 2007, known for excellence in international horse shipping. When you fly with Horseflight, you fly first class. Visit them at horseflight.com for a quote, and check out episode 27 of this podcast, which featured Emil Spadone, owner of Horseflight.
And if you'd like to learn more about upcoming guests and previous episodes, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Horsetails with Kat. And shout out to those listeners in Virginia, Toronto, and Montreal.